YouTube and start the YouTube going. And your event is starting and we're streaming. All right, guys, I'm just going through and checking things out right now, making sure that we are going and that we are live over there on all of these different channels. Okay, and it is, voila. Okay, good. We are set there and on Facebook. Let's just confirm this baby. Still not going live.
It's going to wait till the last second. It's having none of it.
Yeah. It's 12:30, 2:30 here. Okay, go. Let me click go. Maybe it's waiting for me to click a button. Yes, it was waiting for me to click a button that said I wanted to go live. Yes, I wanted to go live. Okay. All right, guys. Let me make sure I'm recording on all of the other spectrums. We will start the broadcast.
The broadcast is now started. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
And we'll do recordings. All right. Multiple ways that you guys can be watching this. Oh, now I gotta press record. Multiple ways you guys can watch this: Facebook, on YouTube, and then also you head over to uartsy/p/live. That's where I got my eye on it, and I'm looking over there, so I can see Wachkosen, Damien. You get an echo from me. Tomas, you get an echo from me?
You getting? I'm not getting an echo from you, no.
Anybody else getting an echo from me? And Mark getting an echo from me? And you guys over on Facebook, give me a shout out. Let me know if you're getting some kind of echo. Danny says yes.
Oh, the joy.
All right. Slight echo, but not bad. That's really weird. I'll have to listen to the recording because there should be absolutely no echo. So, a couple of things to get you guys going in the beginning. Head over to uartsy.com. That's where we're going to see pretty much most of the classes. Anything I'm running, it's kind of the home for everything. It's kind of the umbrella. Right now is what I'm using it as. So Game Art Institute, the boot camp is going to be over there. Then we've also got, let's say, Paul Gabriel's ZBrush course. You can head over there. That'll take you over to ZBrush workshops. His ZBrush course is active right now. It's not for the live one that Paul's in, but Paul's done all of that stuff live. So if you want access to that and you want to make sure you learn ZBrush, head over to Paul ZBrush workshops. You get that? What we're talking about today here is I have Tomas with me, and we are going to be looking at jewelry design inside of ZBrush. Really, we're going to be looking at Tomas's work, right? And just reviewing some of the process, some of the ways that he gets this really amazing detail and how he thinks about jewelry design and object design within ZBrush, which is going to encompass not just the design side, but how do you get in there and use the brushes? How do you think about the sculpting? You know, what's the philosophy behind this kind of ornamentation, right? And this is a skill that is, the people that have taken this, I think we've had over 300 people go through and take this course. And it's not about, it's not just about jewelry. You know, I've had environment artists take this and it's helped them in their careers. Then we've also had toy and jewelry people come through here, character people that really want to get in and understand how to really take their design to the next level for all the different elements that you got to do inside of games. So let's switch over to the screen so you can see just Tomas's screen and not see my face as you are here live. And Tomas, do you have a sense of what you wanted to cover today?
Well, what I was going to do is since I'm on my mobile studio, I've been working on this body jewelry stuff, but what I have are some pieces that are already pretty much done and then also already chopped and stuff, so we don't have to go through the live Boolean meshes and stuff, but I can show the process through it. And then what I figured is we'll do a quick, I was just playing here while you were talking, but just kind of go through the new tools and show just some of how, because everyone's like, oh, you know, the Sculptress Pro is going to change everything, and it does, but it surely doesn't eliminate decimation, dynamat. You know, it's just another tool in the toolbox. And actually, what's really funny is I tend to believe that its most powerful thing for us is our capacity to now work on decimated models. We can do minuscule changes at super high detail and not completely blow out the size of the model, had to redecimate it, so there are a handful of things that really have made printing, that step to printing dramatically nicer. I mean, all the grief, every time they put one of these things, new updates out, I'm always just like, oh man, you're making this so much easier. People just won't believe it took me 10 years to figure this out.
I know, right? You've been at the vanguard of this for quite a while, which I think is very powerful. Hey, Ruby, how are you doing? And really just pushing what this is capable of, which makes me think, I want to get one piece of information out of you. What kind of computer do you have?
Well, at home or right now? Right now I'm on a Mobile Studio Pro 16, the one with the most RAM, whatever, the bigger one. But at home I have a tower that has 32 cores, 130 something gigs of RAM. But it's getting old. It's pushing, 5 years or something. So it was like bleeding edge in its day, and now it's still a pretty big bruiser. Yeah. It was money well spent.
I got a Microsoft Surface Pro, or Surface Studio, sorry, and I got the most that I could get, but it's still limited to, I think, like 8 cores. So there's some operations that are just like slow as hell. It's mind-numbing.
Well, yeah, that's why I figured it'd be good to do these, because we can sit and wait for some decimating and some Boolean meshing. And I forgot about it. I was streaming on Pixelogic the other day, and I tried to do something, and it was just like, chug, chug. I was like 15 minutes into it. I was like, okay, you know what? We're not going to do that at all. We're going to do something very different. It was like, nice idea, not happening. Yeah, I don't know what this has. I think it's like 16 gigs of RAM. I think it's only, I can't even remember how many cores it is.
Yeah, that's what's really important about ZBrush, though, is the cores. Everybody forgets that. And so that means you're probably not working with an i7. You're probably working with like a Xeon, right? Processor.
Yeah, how can we check? Is there a place in here, like about my PC? Does that still exist?
Here you're probably working with the i7 or i5. But in the older one, you're probably working with Xeon at home.
No, it's it's like a i6, i5, something like that. i5, it can't be. I mean, it's 5 years old. It can't be. I had someone else build it. I can't see prompt my way out of a paper bag. I was like, I just want something that's going to do this, and they made it. I was like, yay! I found a new computer builder up in Seattle, Puget Systems, and man, they build wicked machines. I'm going to have them build another one for me next. I think they're going to be my next machine. They build like those crazy mathematic computers that are submerged in like coolant fluid, like the fish tank computers. Nice. They built some really cool.
All right, we got to talk. All right, so let's get sorted here. Those of you guys who are joining, I am talking to Tomas Wittelsbach, and we are talking about jewelry design inside of ZBrush, right? So the reason why we're talking about this is because there is a class. Tomas' class has had hundreds of people run through it. Ruby's run through it. George, did you run through this? And there's been a lot of people that have run through this course, and some people have ended up like furthering their jewelry business. Some people have ended up actually, and you have to excuse me, this trash is in the middle of the afternoon. God. So, excuse me. And so the class is up. It's over at UArtsy. And really it's at jewelrytech.com. But you can find it at UArtsy. You just go there and go to the middle of the page, somewhere right there, you'll see jewelry. You'll see Tomas's work. All right, so his class is there. We are enrolling. I don't know the exact date that we're starting. It's going to be right there in the course. Susan, do you know the date?
It's Wednesday the 25th.
The 25th? You guys got no time at all. If you want to learn jewelry design, you want to learn some of the stuff that Tomas is doing, get your butts over there. And get yourselves in there. Oh my God. I got the trash on one side. I got my weekend warrior on a weekday here. It's a Tuesday. Mother of God.
It's going down.
This is what I get for paying obscene amounts of rent in Laguna Beach. This is lovely. All right. So, and we also have a jewelry 3D or a JD 3D thing that may be coming. We'll have to figure out the time. But keep your eyes open. So, UArtsy is where it is. But what we want to talk about today is just jewelry design and the workflow that Tomas is doing. And it's more than just, hey, here's how you make a ring. The important thing for me is that you learn. Specifically from Tomas, the way he thinks about design, because that informs how he uses the medium of ZBrush, which is what it is. It's a medium. It's not software per se. So what are we sculpting? What are we doing right here, Tomas?
Well, I was just going to show. So one of the problems with block up before, I just wanted to throw this. Everyone asked about the new Sculptrix, so
yes.
I figured I'd show it.
Yes.
And so the beauty of this is like you can block out. Go ahead.
I was going to say, have you had what's the polygon count you can get to with Sculptrix?
It's pushing, I think, like 150,000, 200,000, maybe 300,000 on this machine. I haven't tried it at home.
Okay.
I was playing with the memory allowances, and then I only had one like history. I was just like, okay, I'm screwing things up. I'll ask Paul.
Okay.
I don't know what I just set things at, but. So it's in that, I view it in the 300,000 and under, honestly. I think that's, and, I work at high resolution, so in some ways it's great to like sort of get to this point, or whatever. I'm still going to subdivide it. What is wonderful about it, though, is that as you're sculpting, it really allows you to remember all of the mesh management stuff that I'm constantly preaching about.
Yeah.
What this really allows you to do is you're like, okay, well, on the inside of this ring, I don't need, oops, sorry, that's the wrong button. I don't need a lot of geometry, right? And then I know I'm going to want a little more here. So I can use smooth. That's mask. My keyboard's sitting wrong. Sorry. I can use smooth to start to assign base geometries, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And since it's scale associated, you come in, and I can really manage the pre-geometry of a quick block up.
Right. And so what, just to be really clear there about it, what Tomas is talking about is how many polygons are in a specific area. So he's localizing how many polygons there are, and that used to be a nightmare.
Yeah, this was tragically difficult.
Yeah.
you wound up blowing up a lot of models. So in this case, it allows us to just come in now, and I have that base. I always use my clay tubes brush. Clay tubes isn't quite as sharp in the Sculptress mode as I like. So I might block up a little here. I tend to still use my traditional block up because I still want my subdivision levels. And so I'll often start with a primitive, right, and go from there. But for a lot of people and for a very organic process, this is still an absolutely beautiful and butterful way of starting your work, and you can just get it in, get geometry. So if you're just working with a quick form, you're not going to beat this as your base block up.
Right.
And, the fact that you can bring things out, sculpt them back, super. But I'm anal, and this is too floppy for me, I'm like, okay, that's nice if you're making lumpy things. Unfortunately, we don't make lumpy things. So let's just jump to that one is divided with this one. I think this is the one we want. All right, so here we are. Nice. I have a 9 million polygon model, and these are the resolutions I like to sculpt at. The beauty now is that I have these presets over here, and these are the presets for decimation tools. And so I have my custom set to 500,000 because that's my average export size. If I know that I'm going to be exporting things higher than that, then I'll change my custom. But let's see if we have something that's a little bit lower res here. Does this have its subtools? No. I thought I had the one with my subtools. I have two. I can organize meshes. I can't organize. Okay, here we go. So this 175,000, let's go higher res a little bit more. We're going to stop here. I'm going to delete lower and delete higher. And we're going to pretend that this is sculpting at a higher level, just because this is a tiny machine and I don't want to go through a half-hour wait. Hold on, we'll turn this off. So we know that we have this nice sharp thing, but I want to come in and I want to change some stuff organically. And I know that the Sculptress Pro Tool is the way to do it. And that's either drawing spikes out. If I know that I'm going to want to, let's say we're going to change this model and I want it to be much bigger over here, right? Oh, what's going on? Oh, 51%, that's what's going on. You know, and I know that I'm going to want to bring this kind of out like this. Well, the problem with doing this here is we're destroying geometry, right? This is now stretching out my mesh. I'm going to have to remesh it. It's a problem. So the nice thing about it is we can go here. Let's go decimate 75,000. It'll do that. And it'll retain our surface detail while decimating the model. And before, these decimated models were they're garbage as far as sculpting. You know, they're useless as sculpting tools. But now, so let's say you've prepped this for print. The design team comes back and goes, oh, well, we need this changed. Well, now you've retained your decimated, and I would normally decimate more than this, but once again, we have interesting internet connection and not the best computer to be playing with big decimation tools. So we'll go snake hook. We'll turn this back on. And now you can come back in, move this, and you're like, oh, well, you just destroyed your geometry. Well, here we did. But the key is that I didn't destroy the rest of the ring. And so I can come in, and you can see now that we can come in and do, you know, a high detailed transition back to those details.
So did you decimate this first?
Yeah, I did. We're at 75,000 or maybe 150.
Okay, great. All right. So you decimated it, and now essentially you're moving into an area that you want to sculpt more. And so you're adding local detail.
And like, exactly. And also, like, if you come in and like someone wanted, you know, these detailed change, you can come in, you know, change your geometry, and then get as detailed as you want. Right here. And if you look, you know, our geometry count isn't skyrocketing. And so after decimation, I think that this is really where your money's made as far as going to printing, because you can come back and completely do this and, you know, get it as tight as we can. It can get, you know, beautiful detail. And, you know, we can even go in more.
Okay, slow down because we're getting some lag.
Even dumber detail.
And I should mention this to everybody.
And changing the.
Yeah, hold on one second, Tomas.
Okay.
Let me know when you hear me. Okay. All right. So Tomas is in. Where are you at? Where are you at?
Sorry.
He's in Spain. Smallish town.
In Spain, in Gandia, Spain, in Valencia.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so the internet connection will be, you know.
It's a little place. And so you can,
I'm not seeing the screen update, basically.
Crappy. I'm doing my best. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, not to worry. He won't be teaching from Spain.
Are we moving now?
Yeah, I believe so. So move the cursor and then yeah, there we go.
No, I won't be teaching. Did it zoom out?
Nope, not yet.
Wah. No luck?
All right. So I'm looking at
okay, we'll talk.
Yeah.
So the key stuff is so a lot of the new tools really provide for us as makers of objects, because if you're doing something for a game, a lot of times you can apply those textures on. You can, they're basically, you're applying pictures to low poly models. And now they're sculpting high poly models, taking pictures of them, and then applying that to a low poly model. But at the end of the day, we have to have the geometry to get out of the machine. And so these new tools really provide some fantastic steps that are allowing us to do changes at times we wouldn't be able to do changes beforehand. And in the workflow process, especially if you're dealing with designers or clients, they're going to have changes. They're going to want to, well, can't you just move it to the left a little? And you're like, no, actually I can't. So the sculptures tool really is a beautiful mesh management tool as well as a base block-up tool. The other tools that I've really been using a lot are the live Boolean stuff. The live Boolean stuff for jewelry has created a beautiful thing for us. So here I can sculpt. I've created these hinges, which are cutters, right? And this can work, for anything, but this is what I'm working on at the moment, and I happen to have these broken up so we don't have to sit around and wait for these to process.
I love these. I've seen these in action. These are quite beautiful.
Yeah, so it's tricky. Some of these, I'll tell you, you'll make them and make them and make them, and then you'll do a little move. Getting the part perfect is a little tricky, but worth the extra time, because now, no matter what these rings are, I have these base set hinges. And so when you're creating hinges and joints for dolls and things like that, you have to think of the airspace. Basically, you're sculpting the airspace. And until you wrap your head around what's actually going on mechanically, sometimes you want to pull your hair out. And that's why it's important to make one set of hinges works, and then you squeeze them around to make them work for others. So this is my base hinges for these piercings. So basically what you have is a pressure fit or a snap. You have your hinge, and as you can see, this is cutting the hole all the way through. So that's the pin. That airspace is the pin. This is the space of the cut. That's the receptacle. And then this is the nipple. And so this is shallower. Here, let's give you a cross section of this. Right? You can see that there's space there, and then this is shallower, so that's going to snap into that hole. So you're cutting both sides, right? You're cutting the nipple and the receptacle. And so we come in here, we look at it, and turn it on. Oh, yeah, show part. Turn it on, and you can see, you turn the live Boolean on, and you can start to see where everything's lying. Now, the nice thing about, so you can sort of see that, oh, look, I've kind of crunched these, this is a problem. Well, let me see, I think it's this one. Yeah. And so you can see that I knew that was going to be an issue here. So in the base part, we just sculpted that in, and you can sculpt around the hinge before there is a hinge. So it really allows you a lot of control over what's going on. And like you can change the cutting angle, right? Like we just mapped that, flip it, W. Oop, nope, wrong one. Flip, there we go. And like the nice thing about this, see how I'm changing that angle there? Well, what that is when we come in here, and this has already been unimeshed, or make Boolean mesh. I can come to here, go to W, grab this guy, bring it up in here. And when I'm testing, I'll normally mark an X there so I know I'm actually on center, but for this we'll be fine. And then you can say, okay, well, that's clear. That's starting friction there. This is bumping here. Oh, well, this is a little off. So now you can go back in and fuddle with it a little. And like these were sort of tricky hinges to deal with because these are offset hinges. Because if it's half round, we have a lot of, like you have to have airspace on the bottom where how this hinge is organized, the only place we need to show it is up here. Otherwise, it can close off pretty well. And it offsets. Now I have my little thing set wrong, so you can't see it. And so that's your tension, boop, snap. And I know you can't see it, but did you get the little snap?
Oh, right. There you go. We got some sound effects.
I have a little printed ones, but oh, there we go. Did you hear that?
Wait, is that the printed one? Snapping?
Yes. Yeah, so it works. Ta-da!
Ta-da! What are you printing on?
The Form Labs, Form 2. I'm using black right now. I'm very interested in the new gray, the tougher gray. The light gray was just shattered too much for me. I couldn't use it because, like, if I'm using black right now. I like the black material.
Oh, this isn't.
It's just a little.
This is like a year old. The new gray.
The brand new gray that they just came out with.
No,
it's not shipping yet.
How many grays is it?
Yeah, the gray. Well, it's considered. Hold on, what are they calling it? It's one of their new engineering materials. Let's see.
I love like they've updated gray already. And that the updated one that I thought was a year ago was gorgeous. It was beautiful because you could just pull the supports off with your thumb. You know, they melted off.
Yeah. No, that's not Form Labs. What just happened there? Oh, that's Capio. I'm in Spain. That's who sells stuff from Spain. Okay. Where is it? Form 2. Materials. Engineer.
D3.
Yeah, they just announced these.
All right.
And hold on. Come on. Where is it? I'm willing to give them the time. So the Gray Pro resin, they've designed it to be a bit more for static prototyping. So supposedly it has a little bit more resilience to it, and it's less transparent than the other gray. Because that was my problem with the gray, is that it was so translucent on thin, because I could see through it, or the light came through it, so I lost my details, or being able to see my details. And supposedly this supposedly does quite a bit for it. I love their tough. We're using the high temp right now. Oh my gosh. It shatters. You got to be real careful with the high temp. Don't drop them old. They explode. They blow up like glass.
Well, that's actually an interesting thing to chat about next. So if we, part of my job here is I'm a Tomas herder. So I herd Tomas into different areas.
Yes, I do ring them all.
so I take my job seriously. So what we've talked about here was Sculptress Pro, and how what this is really, what Tomas has found this useful for is establishing the base mesh and making sure that you've got proper topology. But then also the other thing, in case you guys missed it, because we had a little bit of internet lag, it's better now. But Nowadays, in terms of sculpting, we do a ton of sculpting decimated meshes. So sculpt, decimate, and then localize detail somewhere by using that smooth brush at a small radius, and then sculpt again.
Yeah.
Like I've been decimating left, right, and center. I never used to do that.
Yeah, no, it's really, that's why I actually have it right here on my screen. I mean, I use it a lot.
Oh,
it's
great.
like boom, and then you could. Yeah, I put them right here on the right.
That is a fantastic
And then
idea.
we're not even going to start talking about polygroup. Polygrouping become ridiculous. Polygrouping is like so tight now. It's just wonderful.
Oh, are you
Just
liking
the concepts of being able to
polygroup it?
paint on your. Well, the polygroup, I don't usually wind up with enough defined, clear shapes. Like mine don't actually close out. You know what I mean? So the polygroup, I can't show it the power that it is. Let's put it that way. It's an amazing tool that I'm like, okay, but the masking and polygrouping.
Yeah.
And like polygroup by tone, I've used it quite a bit actually. It's super nice because like if you really need to come in, well, you saw my cicada, right? I don't think I have it as a tool. I'd have to import it in. The one that I did in the beta test.
Yes.
Like the wings and stuff like that were all masked on. I masked it on, turned them into polygroups, and then edge looping the polygroups to tighten stuff up. I mean, it's funny, a lot of things that I would never use before because they're very. So here's the thing, like when you're trying to crease, how I do my models is we start very low. Yeah, we'll just go to cylinder. Boop. W. Yeah, come on. I tend to actually like to start with primitives because I like as much mesh control as I can get. And I will still say that the best mesh control you have is right here, is starting here, making your thing, getting it to where you want to go. And now I have control over how much mesh I have. And then because there's still tools, like when you're applying textures and things like that, and since I do a lot of snakes and scales, the most power you have over that is with your subdivision level tools. Because let's get up to like 1 million here. W, turn that off real quick, and we're just going to quickly make some scales. Oh, yeah, see. Fat, turn that down. I think everybody knows that scales work in diamonds. Right, there you go, you have scales. So now we just come in. And I know this seems insane, but most of the time I really do most of my texturing by hand. I find that the alphas and stuff, well, one, there are 3 scale alphas out there that everyone uses. You put scales on, they look like scales. And yeah, I'm not a sculpt it, man. This is a sculpting program. Sorry, I'm a traditionalist that way. I'm a firm believer in sculpting your way out of problems, not wait. I can't tell you how many times I've sat there and wasted hours on trying to figure out how to get a tool to work. And I'm just like, oh my God, just sculpt it. What am I doing here? Me and that damn noise thing, I can never get it to work. Because the other thing is, especially with the noisemaker, like if you're doing this with noisemaker, all you're going to get on the sides is something that looks like that. unless you go in, you set your ease up, and then it'll rotate around. These guys make it look like it's so easy. It just makes me insane because I can't figure it out. And so, you know, we make scales. You know, our scales get smaller over here, so guess what? We can make them smaller. Look at that. Woo. Sorry. I do tend to actually, I'm a little bit of a liar here. Now with the vector displacement maps, I'll throw this triangle down and then I'll squeeze vector displaced scales that I spent a lot of time carving. I do that a lot actually now. That's become a super wonderful tool. Actually, those vector displacement maps are rad. I don't think I have any of mine on this machine though. So we're just going to.
You know, this is a fantastic time for us to revisit old battles. So, do you use Matrix at all in your pipeline?
I don't. I haven't used Matrix in maybe 8 years. I think now, yeah, maybe something like that.
Cool.
I don't know. I found it very restrictive. I know lots of people do use Matrix, and I do teach. Like I'm often brought into companies to teach how to incorporate ZBrush into a sculpting pipeline that includes Matrix. So it's not like I'm really anti-Matrix. It's just, I don't know. It's not a sculpting program. I'm a sculptor, you know. It's a CAD program. And I really think, you know, I use the term breaking the CAD mind a lot because I get a lot of people who are jewelers who are like, oh, well, you know, ZBrush is useless because it doesn't have 4 screens. Is Shinya listening? And I don't have, you know, it doesn't, there is no, no, I did that just for Shinya. You know, there's no scale. I've been listening to that for almost a decade because people really weren't thinking, no, I've been listening. Dude, it's like 12 years, isn't it? Yeah. 2005? Holy hell. Okay. Sorry, I get shocked every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so we're going to come in. The whole scale thing gives me ulcers. It's like it has scale. You just don't want to use it. You know, it's just like, I'm just putting these on here because these are detail. And then we're just gonna, and all of this is to show you why you want. Really, you know, I'm not really good at making. This was all for one point. Was okay. That's here. I'm going to draw little lines. Oh my god. Okay. Ridiculous.
You know, one of the things that I've learned watching you do this over the years is that things are very simple in the beginning, and you know, it all comes together. Like it's hard for me to tell people sometimes that, you know, you just have to go through the digital sculpting and you can get really good results as opposed to, oh, I got to go to Maya and I got to make it, you know, fine, perfect geometry, topology, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, no. Well, and you know, I imagine for video games and things like that, there is things you have to do. You know, sure. I don't rigging. Yeah, I don't. That's how to win a bet. You know, I don't know. I don't know. So, but you know, there's nothing you can't sculpt your way out of that I found. You know, I mean, I really. So here I go again. Okay, so the whole reason this was because I believe in subdivision levels. And the main key to subdivision levels is that when you have really nice, well-worked detail at a higher point, I know, can you believe that's where all this was again? And I forgot, and then I went back again. So I do a lot of subtle surfacing. And it's really one of the things that separates my work from a lot of people. And it's another reason why at the end of the day, I use a solid state printer for my production, is because it's a true 25 microns, and you can get it down below that. And so the difference in detail, well, okay, hold on. We'll go to that in a minute. So you spend your time, you work on this, and now you take move, and you go like this, and everything's sort of out of whack, right? Because you're pulling these directly. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to get smoother transitions, you just come back down to here, and then you move the thing out, you move the thing out. And then what it's basically doing is it's reprojecting to those squares. And so you can see here we do have some distortion because we have taken something and stretched it twice as wide. Yeah. But you can see that it's not distorting the pattern. It's stretching, it's scaling it, not twisting it, I guess. And so I like to have this. The other thing that everyone asks me is, and we have to actually go up one more subdivision level. Well, Tomas, you know, I keep smoothing this and I keep getting these lumpy surfaces and I can't get a lumpy surface. And, you know, you work at these high resolutions and all you do is switchy your little brush around and you're not paying attention to your hard surfaces. And, you know, how do I smooth this out? And I can't tell you how many of my students are like, Tomas, I can't get this smooth. Wait, I can't get this smooth. Hold on, I can't get this smooth. Well, that's because you're trying to smooth a 4 to 10 to 20 million poly model, and your smooth just doesn't have that kind of caliber. Mm-hmm. And then you try to bring a brush in, and you're trying to do it all up here, and you can't. Your brushes just aren't responsive enough. I mean, you can come in and get nice clean edges with this, but if you have dents and dimples, you know, that's not a smoothing process, at least not at a high resolution process. And that's why a lot of the creature modelers and things like that work at low res, because they can control their surfaces. Well, so you have low res. You go down to low res and you just smooth it out. And it allows you to, like on a surface like this, you know, we can get this area back to being pretty darn smooth, which you wouldn't be able to if the only thing you have is that high resolution. Yeah. And that's why I still will decimate and reproject. Like now with the new Z Remodeler and Dynamesh, and then you just keep smoothing as you go up. And so having your subdivision levels are so important when you're trying to control your surfaces. And every once in a while, like when you decimate or Dynamesh and you get some weird little glitchy corner and it's just crap geometry, that you just remesh it, you know. But a lot of people, you're scared of losing your geo. Hold on, where's that one I decimated? No, that's it, right? Yeah, okay. So the other tools that I love, here, let's go back to where we actually have something of high resolution, or the higher resolution there. Okay. Now, the other thing that I'll do, another way of going about all this is, let's say I'm sitting here and I'm sculpting this, and I have this weird, oh, wow. Okay, hold on. Let's go back before this decimation. All right. You know, I'm working here, and I'm sure everybody has this. And you're working, and you're like, and you just have this weird little glitch, or there are those drop pixels that you just can't smooth up. You know, you can pick it up, and it's just like a dead point. There's just nothing you can do about it. It makes me crazy. And so, one of the tools I often use, and let's say we're going to resculpt this, so we're going to go into QW, come in here, and these remesh by Dynamesh, remesh by Union, and remesh by Z Remesher are awesome.
Tell me about those, because that has confused me a little bit.
So ZResh by Dynamesh is just that. So we're taking this and we're remeshing it. So basically we're Dynameshing it. That's all we're doing. It's just in a nice place. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let's delete higher and lower. Delete higher, delete lower. We come in here, and so, oh, I have symmetry turned on. Turn off symmetry. Also, if you are using Sculptrix and for some reason your brush won't come on, it's because back-face masking is turned on. It wasn't like that in the beta, I'm pretty sure. And then when it came back, I was like, once again, broadcasting for Pixelogic, I'm like, I can't get this to work. I'm like, oh my God. I really do a good showing for myself regularly. So we come in here. So just think of this as remesh or as Dynamesh, as Z remesh. Oh, crevice. We'll do this. First thing you do, everybody, first thing you do, because some of these are destructive tools, keep your base model. If you like what happens, you can throw it away, but I'm going to show you why you want to keep it. And so these are symmetry tools. I'm not going to use those. Like if you want it to make sure that it's reprojecting, let's say I want this side, you can reproject it just to where you're using those two sides. Here, let's give you an example.
Can we have a discussion about cones?
Symmetry. We're just going to. You can see the numbers changing here.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are a little stressed out about the cones.
I know I saw that in the.
Honestly, the cones in these don't bother me. Okay. The cones that are brutal is on the projection master, or the project primitive.
Right.
That one will get you. That one, there's so much in that tool that you really have to sit down and work with it. And let me assure you, it's well worth sitting down and working with. It's so funny. I was watching, since I'm on Twitch now, I watch a lot more people Twitch, you know, and it was super funny. There was a guy who was using, what's that other one? Blender. He was using Blender. And, oh, here. I just wanted to show you what symmetry does. So if you like one side over the other, you can remesh it symmetrical, right? I don't like that. But, and you notice we just changed it back. It was no big deal. This is the amount of polygons, and you just slide it down here. I like this to be, especially if I'm using Z remesher, I like this to be low as we can get it. But he was building just like this pneumatic pump thing. And so it was a half dome with a flat plate. And he was like talking about how he couldn't do it in ZBrush. And I was just like, well, now you can. And he's like, no, ZBrush never worked, blah. He was like, you know, every time I click undo, it changes this and adds a leg or something. And I was just like, what are you talking about? But watching him try to do that in Blender, I was just like, dude, you really need to pause and just look at this tool. But you do have to spend a little time with it. You have to wrap your head around, because that one has a lot of cones. But these are okay. I don't mind the cones. Once you get used to looking at your numbers here, you know you have so much control over what you're doing. You know, so this is 5,000 active points, right? And so now we bring this back. We divide this up. And now I project it back to that. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to waste our time chugging around projecting, unless you want me to. But so this way, let's say this was a Dynamesh model. It only had one subdivision level. Well, all I do is I Z remesh it, I bring it back, and now I can go up, do my subdivision levels, and now I have those cleanup powers of being able to drop up and down on my subdivision levels, and I still have all of the things that I had sculpted up to this point, and an organized mesh. Now this is super great when you're trying to go to this. You had one change. You don't want to do your whole thing. You decimate made it down, you do your one change, you mask that change area off, and you reproject all your other stuff. I'm still a big project and reprojector. I mean, like, do I have any? I think I might have deleted it. Let's see. No. As I say, I think I purged a lot of just the random stuff in here. Normally, I'll have like, yeah, see on this one, I have 3 different iterations of the same model here. And you can see this started up here like this. I wanted to change this. I didn't like how it was sitting, so I brought it in, sculpted it, and then I have another version of it, right? And I just bounce back and reproject from each one. If you notice, none of these are labeled well. Label your parts well, because I lose parts constantly because I don't label things all the time because I'm silly. And it's a really good thing to do, is label your things. So you can see that this was a Z-remesh. Now, you can use your painting tools. If you go into Z-remesh over here, and just make sure that you have used polypaint on, you can do your painting and still use this tool, and it'll do the same. It'll dictate where the polygons go. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Is that something anyone's interested in doing, or should we just keep going with the other thing?
Let's keep going.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought so. I was trying.
I'm trying. It's all good. It's all good. And all right. So recap a little bit of what we've talked about so far.
So Dynamo. Me?
Yeah.
Or you? You want me to recap?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just real quick.
You're usually a really good recapper. I don't know.
Okay. Yes. And I got lost. Sorry. I just
No problem. So being able to control our meshes model in here, our models mesh in here. So this is the Z remeshed, and it'll allow us to go back and forth.
Yeah.
Remesh by Dynamesh is just that. You come in, you can see the number. I can't circle it. See the little numbers there, 822.
Yep.
Boom. And now it's these don't hit exactly. The algorithms are trying to get as close as possible. And then, so instead of a perfectly quad mesh with the Dynamesh, you wind up with a Dynamesh. Mm. And then, come on, you can do it. The remesh by union is sort of I use it a lot like a mirror and weld, where I often forget to turn my symmetry on. Like I'll be working on it, and then because you can't have symmetry on in a number of these tools, I'll turn the symmetry off. Oh, look, we have symmetry on, so this might be doing something weird. And so I often use the remesh by union to cut. I'll show you just a second. Okay, so it rejected that because it was composed of multiple subdivision levels and our symmetry was turned on. So this is just your standard Dynamesh, and then remesh by union. And remesh by union is just that. If we cut this in half, there's Shinga. It's the same thing. Like if I want to, hold on, let's get out of here. Q, let's trim. That's not trim, by the way, Tomas. I've obviously rebooted. Shoot. Right, we've trimmed it. Duplicate, mirror. And merge down. And now you can W, remesh by union. Oop. Where's my counter? Oh, it's going. and you can see that it joined it, right?
Yeah, with some issues, but
and so
at the top,
right, because I had the crossover, but so that's a quick way of unioning things without going through the Boolean mesh. If you just want to throw here, append. Let's see here. Turn that on. Move down, merge down. Okay. UMask, and then once again, UMask by union. And you can see how it did itself. The nice thing about that is that you can have things that are radically different geometries, and it does pretty good about jamming it all together. I'm not even going to open Project Primitive because we'll spend the rest of the time talking about it because there's no quick way of doing it. But yeah, there are all your different. This is the one that you have to kind of wrap your head around as far as the cones go. It's a tricky one. But it's really cool.
That is.
But I'm not going to show you.
Yes. We'll save that for the class because really not because it's not because we're trying to hide anything, but because it is an involved feature. I think Pixelogic's aware is quite involved. They've gotten some pushback on that.
Yeah, it's really, you just have to spend time with it. And I mean, I sit there fiddle futz with it a lot, but I like it. I mean, it's super useful for a number of things.
Yeah.
I do the smooth. The smooth all is great. Like you really can, futz with your surfacing. Twist and taper are always a joy. And I don't think people go in here and play with these enough because they're pretty awesome. I do use, I'll admit I use flatten a lot because it allows me to come in and define the bottom of an edge. It really allows you to go, okay, well, I need this to be flat right here.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. I use flatten a lot, and I also use extender quite a bit.
Extender?
Because you grab your little dot, move it here, and
yes,
it blows geometry into stuff. And so I can move, and I find this one to be super helpful as well. And it has all kinds of new things. You can distort and taper and winky dink, and there's a whole lot of winky dinking going on. But what's nice is you really can, once you make a change, you can do really fine tuning stuff in this area. As you can see, we have this beautiful model.
Yeah.
See, this is where I feel I'm jealous of character designers because you can muddle scrub a little eyeball into a ball and everyone's like, oh, it's an eye. Really? I see how you play it out. Wait, hold it, divide. Wait, are you ready? Hold on.
Let me do a query too of people who are here, and we're hitting up. Are we hitting at about an hour? I think we're close to that. Let me see how long. And so, how many people do we have here interested in jewelry design? Just either in Facebook or right there on the site. You can tell me. If you're interested in design, just say yes. Type in yes. If you're not, say no. I'm a big fan of interactivity, so get your fingers typing. And I want to get a sense of who's interested in jewelry design and who's interested in this as coming from character and from sculpting and from environments and games. Let's take a quick sense. And then as a quick reminder, you head over to UArtsy if you want to learn more about this, and make sure that you sign up for the webinar, even if you've already done it, so that I know you're interested, and then we can get you guys some more resources on this and make sure that you know exactly what you need, going forward. So I am pausing for a moment. Joff, taper finally works on all three
Yeah,
axes.
and I will say this.
Yeah. Go for it.
I was going to say, I will say this. A lot of, I get kickback often about jewelry design. Really, I'm a design teacher, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I really try to get you guys to understand design concepts. And a lot of the education really comes through the critiques and how, because the classes are interesting, they're very fluid, because I have people who know about jewelry, people who don't know about jewelry, people who know about ZBrush and people who don't know about ZBrush. The class really is very organic, but it's really targeted towards getting the most out of what you want to do. I've had a couple of people who are like, well, I'm not really interested in jewelry. Can I show you the character design stuff while we're doing it? And yeah, of course you can. The key is I have an odd process about how to get detail out of the computer. And if you're trying to do toys, if you're trying to do, figurines, if you're trying to do tables and furniture, not art cars. Sorry, inside jokes there. That's really the goal. And I want you to be a better designer because, yeah.
Sorry, this is a little slow in the update.
The real goal is to. No, I knew I'd hit eventually. But I had a really interesting and wonderful compliment the other day, because on my Twitch channel, I tried to run critiques one day. And there's a guy who's part of the community. He was Mike Art, but whatever. He streams a lot, but he does a lot of black and white illustration, and he does some ZBrush. And he asked if he could bring, he brought the little sculpture, and we started talking about the sculpture. And then I was like, well, let me see the piece of art it's about. And then we started talking about the art. And then I was basically critiquing his 2D art, and he's a great artist. But, I have a lot of years of design behind my back, not just art, design. I had to work where you're trying to fulfill what other people want, and that's a little trickier than art sometimes, because art's great. It's what's going on in my head. And luckily, for the most part, my work now is what I do, But, there's definitely a way of approaching, product. And then, you have to think about your client. You have to think about, is it producible? You have to think about, is it good design? And so the class really covers a lot of, I think it's a broad spectrum class. I could be wrong. What do you think?
Oh, I think it is. And specifically in terms of, sculpting, ornamentation, getting a sense of the design of things, getting a sense of, how to orchestrate a piece, because at the end of the day, one of the things that is missing a lot from a lot of sculptors, they get in and they do the figure sculpting or they do the environment, but putting it all together into beautiful pieces, something that has composition, has some elegance, has some rhythm and proportion and design, is one of the harder skills for 3D people.
I think so, because, it's funny when you're coming out of a two-dimensional world and you're then in turn, you think you have something nice here, but, look, this looks great from here. Oh, wait. The fact that you have to rotate your part around and look at it, and just some simple habits that'll just make you a better sculptor, really is, that's, I don't know, I it's sort of my goal. I want better sculptors out there, and I want people to really have the freedom to explore what they want by getting over the tools. I think that a lot of people get intimidated and then excited about certain tools, and then they forget that really these are sculpting tools, and being a better sculptor and figuring out how to stroke your way out of an issue, as opposed to, trying to figure out how to get shapes to work together by sculpting them together and not by looking for the tool that's going to solve that problem. I think, because that's one of the things I really find that I have to get students kind of out of. You know, yes, we're here to learn a program, but we're also here to learn that the program is just a tool for us to use. It's not the end all be all. You know, like the first thing I tell everyone in the class is, if you can go take a live sculpting class, a life sculpting class, go take it. Because my life sculpting, we weren't allowed to keep the models. The whole point was that you did it fast and you didn't care, you know, because we all make mistakes. We all suck. I mean, that's the one thing I think a lot of people don't get. A lot of my students get really intimidated by, oh, you know, I just worked, you know, 6 hours on this and it doesn't look good. And, you know, I spent so much time on it. And it's like, okay, first of all, spending 6 hours on a model is an okay amount of time. But, you know, how many hours have you put into the program? How many hours have you sat and worked? And, you know, so much of this is man hours, and realizing that 90% of the things that you make suck. And then you can then tune those things into things that don't suck once you realize why they suck. I mean, I make stuff that sucks a lot, but I happen to have the skill set to be able to sit back and go, oh, it's this curve that sucks, you know, and then after working on it, you're like, oh, well, there we go. Now we know, and we can then move on past the sucking. But yeah, I don't know why I went on my suck rant there, but you know, it's, I think that, yeah, you know, we're out here to learn, and we'll get better. Trust me, we're working on it.
Well, design is an iterative element too, so you know you have to be.
It really is
to go through that process. You know, like we can see you searching for the design right here. You know, where is it going to be? And you know, I've seen you try out several different things, and you're looking for the proper relief. So you know, you're really searching.
Yeah, and I've really developed this. I mean, I am a meanderer at this point. It's funny. I've really come to grips with. I mean, like when I have a job, you know, someone's like, "Oh, I want, you know, a flowery wedding ring." I'll go in and I'll do it. You know, it's not an issue. But here, let me show you. I'm ridiculed and laughed at dramatically by my quick save usage. Everyone laughs at my quick save. They actually made a joke about me quick saving at the release for them.
Right at the summit, or not the summit, but it was the release video. You're right.
You know, I have about I have a lot of quick saves. I quick save every 30 minutes, and as you can see, you can add this up. This quite a bit in hours just right here. But this is my point. I mean, look at. Okay, here, let's just look at the elephant, right? We start back here with some rough, lumpy shape, right? And I'm coming along, we come along, we come along. And I mean, I'll muddle. I'll try something, I won't try it. I'll try something, I won't try it. Like this silhouette right here is actually what this ring turned out to be, right? And I mean, I went through a lot of there it is. You can see here the swoopiness. I know it's a little bit here. There you go. You can see this, right? And I mean, this goes through a lot of iterations like that. And then I'm like, you know what? There's no salvaging that. I hate that. And I changed it to this. And, you know, I think this is a much more solid design, especially for the client and the product base. But, you know, you could see that there were 20 quick saves with that image like that, right? And I mean, we bounce between different rings and this and that at the same time. And then I just completely threw it away. If you notice, it's not in here. I threw it. And I made a more solid piece. He likes the little ribby things, so we did more ribby things, not as much holes, blah blah blah. But I think that's something to think about, is that as you're working on stuff, you iterate, you work, you iterate, you work, you work, you work, you work, and there are times where you just go, okay, I'm done. It doesn't work, and you can see these are different. Unfortunately, these are all blended up. You really do need to change your little counter and your quick save thing if you're going to do this, because it'll build up. There's the cicada. But you can get to the point where, and you can see here, I'm struggling with chains, right? I worked on the part. You can see that I worked on the bug first, and then, we're going to look at this, and then I'll open the one at the end. Okay. But you can see I was working on the waves a lot, and then I switch, and I'm working on the bug a lot, and then I switch. And then I'm like, okay, well, I have that pretty much done, and now I'm working on the chain, and then I'm working on just the balls of the chain, and then I'm working on the head of the chain. This didn't even wind up. I didn't use it. It's garbage. You can see it here. I just didn't like it. All this is me futzing with it, trying to like it. And then I just threw it away and changed it to something else. And where are you? Okay, come on. No. And it's got to be one of you. Let's try this one. Nope, no saving enough changes. And so, I go back and forth a lot, and I get frustrated with things that don't have the right flow and the right rhythm. And this piece actually is a good description of rhythm, I think. This one turned out pretty good at the end of the day. But I think that learning to be able to see is really what I want most people to come out of my class with. We're going to talk about tools, obviously, and we're going to talk about techniques and forms, obviously. But, you can be the best technician in the world and make crappy jewelry. And, hold on. Nope, that's the crappy chain. Okay, here we go. Come on. Is that not shit? Okay, there we go. And so this, what's funny is actually this isn't the finished one. But you can see how I'm fighting with the chain. I'm trying to figure out the chain lengths. I'm trying to be clever. And it didn't, it was poo. Maybe this is the one. No, you can see I developed a ball. I threw a base link in there so I could start to line up my stuff. And then, at least this is the cicada. And it should show, yeah, you can see when I was talking about painting the polygroups in. I used a lot of polygrouping there.
Yeah.
And then these are just intersected. These are all intersections. It's weird. Oh, it's because I went from this machine to the other machine. But here, let's turn this off. You can see I went through, made a fairly realistic cicada. And then this was my beta test model, by the way, guys. But, figuring out, and it's a shame talking about rhythm. I dumped this because this was a little weird on the bottom. Hold on, let me see if I have those pictures. Give me half a second here.
Yeah.
Sorry, these are my Dropbox. I'm not on my home computer, so I don't have them in front of me, you know. Come on. So, yeah, this is very funny because if anyone knows me, I am absolutely, completely, and utterly anti-rendering. But now I've been using Keyshot, and I have to tell you guys, Keyshot's awesome. Come on, you can do this. It's just pokey. So obviously here, just working on different color variations. And this is so easy. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to do this in V-Ray, but I want to shoot myself trying to get sulfur metal and V-Ray. Just, oh God.
Oh, wait, we got to stop there. This is a Keyshot.
Yeah, this is Keyshot.
Beautiful.
And it's just so fast. Right? And I mean, this isn't like me spending a lot of time. I mean, you can see I'm just kicking through different styles. You know, I mean, it's fast. I've become I like that one. I think that's a good render. I love this. Look at this. I love you can see the reflections in the eye. And that just, you know, that's impressive translucence, good reflections. And I'm just dragging and dropping stuff. I'm not sitting there working on it by any means. Oh, that's the crab card holder that I made. There's the elephant with boxing gloves. This is a coat hanger. So you have the 2 key for the screws there.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
They say pachyderm, right? Pachyderm, got it. I'm very clever. And there's Thomas the Tank. But I do want to just, since we're talking about Keyshot, I do just want to show this. What's my website? Oh, Ink Metal. I'm like, okay, so rings. How much? The skull rings. So this is an actual photo of the sugar skull. And then sorry, any of you have used V-Ray, you have to just appreciate this once it shows up. Come on. You can do it. No, I don't want to be experience anything. Go away. I just want some pictures to load. So, this is, I'll tell you, there are no fire marshals in Spain because this is the statue. Look at how close these things are to buildings, and they burn these things down. I was just like, holy hell, they're burning the city down. It was crazy. So this is my first rendering in V-Ray. Or I mean in Keyshot, sorry. This was a couple hours later, and then this was the next day. So this is 2 days into learning the program. And that sulfured metal is hard to make, especially to show up on Insta. There it is. So that's a rendering, and that's a photograph of a model or of an actual piece. I mean, and that's damn impressive in 2 days. I'm just going to say that. And I did read Nacho's description on how to make sulfured metal, and I went through a couple tutorials, and there was another guy doing metal stuff. But I read 3 tutorials in 2 days, and all of these are test renderings. But I mean, I don't know. That's impressive. If you've ever tried to make sulfured metal in V-Ray, I think you'll know what I mean by that being awesome sauce.
Yeah. That is pretty impressive. So let's talk about printing, and then I think we should probably wrap this up and get everybody moving on their way. And if you guys have questions, you know where to find me. Reply to the emails I send, or you can leave a comment in this video on Facebook or on YouTube. And yeah, let's just leave it at that screen. I love that. It's just so gorgeous. Talk to me about printing. So there were a couple of questions about printing. We use a Form 3, Form 2, you have Form 2. But that's where you do your testing. So what do you do the production printing on?
So I primarily use SolidScape machines for my final printing. I can go to SolidScape's page if you want, but so SolidScape is a printer that's really designed for jewelry or for casting. They only print a castable wax, but the other thing that they do is it prints oh, here, I know the best way to show this, sorry. It prints a very castable wax. Like Form 2 and all of the other SLAs are printing resins, and all of the problems that people have casting resins, everyone has casting all resins. So thermal expansion, incomplete curing, which allows for like orange peel skinning. So basically surface problems from when the excess fluid that wasn't cured in the print gases out and it destroys the investment. So you wind up with weird surfaces. And then the other thing, thermal expansion kind of cracks the mold or cracks the investment. And when you flush the metal in, you get these weird fins of metal. Where SolidScape prints, so this is a SolidScape machine, and it has these two printer heads here. So it prints blue. Do I have it in process? No. So you can see the blue in there and then this pink, right? Mm-hmm. And so it prints its own supports. So I never have to cut supports off. So 99% of my model distortion comes from trying to cut supports off. Well, here you just pop it off, you throw it in this stuff, and it goops off. And now you have a clean print with no support dimples. And for this stuff, that's a big deal, you know, because I make things that are totally wacky to support. And so this allows me to have a clean model at 360 degrees. The other thing you'll see here is surface detail. And you'll hear me talk a lot about retaining detail in prints. And let me just show you the difference. So a lot of people consider this surface detail. Well, this is linear detail. And so, and I keep talking to printing companies about where they're like showing all of these really fine mesh wire prints. Well, any printer can do that. Who cares? This is the difference in printers, is if you notice this very slight surface detail, right? This really fine stuff. Well, if you'll notice, let's go back to this. It shows up here, right? I mean, these are like, you know, 3 micron to 5 microns to 10 micron high. You know, they're tiny little bugger things. And the SolidScape will print a true 9 micron print. And so its X, Y, and its Z are actually, let's just say 25 microns. They'll go smaller, actually. But 25 microns is a pretty good thing. And you can see this subtle stuff is what it's about. Not this wire. This wire stuff actually isn't hard to get. It's the slight steppy detail that becomes the tricky, like this detail on the front here, which is sort of like crumpled metal, right? You can see it there. That's what you'll lose in the other printers. because most other printers aren't true 25 micron printers. They are like SolidScape is, it's a 25 Z step, but its XY is, isn't it like 75 or something like that? Because it's the thickness of the laser. Where here, how this printer works is it lays down printing, and then you'll see this little thing right here. See this box right here? This comes back over the print, so it lays down a layer, and then this has, you know, those old push mowers? This has one of those things in it, and it comes back and shaves this thing back down to, so it'll actually print a thicker print. It comes back, it shaves it down, but since it knows that it's printing 9 microns, it'll then start within the print at that next print level. So it's shaving back down. And what that does is you have no build-up distortion of surfacing. You start, every print layer starts with a nice flat shaved surface. So you don't get transitional noise in the print. So this allows us to get really incredibly beautiful detail consistently, you know, and yeah, so this is the main difference in a professional printer and the prosumer printers. And yeah, you can see how this detail shows where it just looks like crumply metal here. That subtle stuff is what you lose in most of the other printers. And this has absolutely no issues of any sort printing or of casting. So I rarely use the casting resins from any of the SLA printers. Even now, supposedly, we might be able to get to play with 2 other printers this year during the next class, but it depends on when the one comes out. 3D Systems has come out with a new printer that's a desktop printer. But here you can see the detail that we're retaining. I mean, look at the stuff in here, and you can even see like it's actually there. It's just not sulfur. This is an 8mm bead. This is mind-numbing detail for a 15mm bead. You know, so this right here is the reason that I'll use a SolidScape for my final parts when I can. But you know, if you're not doing stuff like this for the elephant, you know, which was a coat hook. You know, actually was, oh no. You know, 50 microns is fine. The solid, I mean, the Form 2 is great. And, you know, you just make a mold. We just make a mold off of it and reproduce it. And that's where the new, I'm interested in some of the new resins that they're coming out with, because the one thing the 3D System printer has more than the others is 3D Systems has a lot of materials that are actually like finished product, like they're plastics and resins that are tough, that are final product parts, you know. So for jewelry, like with the Form 2, we'll test print it. If it's something that doesn't need the detail, we'll just mold that hard plastic print and then produce our waxes, because we found that jewelry wax really is the best thing to cast with. So making a mold and then actually using injection wax, you tend to get better parts no matter what.
Got it. All right, guys. Well,
but Form 2...
Yeah, before.
I was going to say, as far as, I mean, I've touched a lot of printers. I've had a lot of printers in my shop, and I have to say that, like, the Solus is a beautiful printer, but just scale-wise, it's size-wise, it's completely restrictive for me. Like, I'd never be able to print the Cicada on that. Where the Form 2, the build platform, and their material sciences are nice. And they're in, like, 3rd round or 4th round fun going anywhere. Like, 8 years ago, the patents on the SLA stuff was still closed, and you had people trying to break in and be like, oh, that's a great printer. We bought a printer at JCK. It was like, you know, $8,000-9,000, and then literally they got sued and were out of business in a week. So yeah, Form 2's going nowhere.
Yeah. All right, guys. If you want to learn more about the class, head over to urc.com. and it'll be right there in the middle of the page. You can also hit Jewelry Tech. That's where the course will be housed. That's the it's got its own site and its own community over there. Any questions? Email me. Let me know. Tomas, do you think there's a chance we can share your interface?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I'll have Susan reach out to you, and then we'll just make that available to everybody.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, of course.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, two things I would say if you're all just out there practicing, just real quick, since you talked about the interface.
Yeah.
I added closed holes here because when you're remeshing and when you're using the Sculptress Pro, you can blow holes in your model really easily.
Mm-hmm.
Like somehow it just you'll start sculpting and smooth, and all of a sudden you'll have a big hole. Just click close holes, and it closes it. And the other thing I'd really suggest, if you're using the booleans, after you make your boolean cuts, split to parts. And because there's a lot of noise that shows up in these when you're doing these booleans, because like especially if you're doing a lot of sculpting, like a lot of this stuff, sometimes they're just weird pinches and undercuts that it then views as noise shells and creates them. And so do a mesh split, and often I'll get things that are like 250 parts, but you just take your 3 parts. Let's just say these are the 3 things you want to keep, and then the rest of this is just noise. Just get the parts you want, make those parts visible, and then merge visible. You'll get a new part with all that noise out of it, and it's an extra step. But it'll save a lot of problems later, because often, like when you're sculpting and you get some weird dent, it's some weird noise shell behind there, and it came from Dynameshing or this, that, and the other thing. So those are 2 hints that I suggest that are on my interface that are useful when you're doing that. Cool. I don't know if that made any sense, but those are good things.
Good deal. Good deal. All right, my friend. Well, I look forward to seeing you back when you're back in the States. We'll get a call.
Hey, at least
What's that?
Yeah. Without a doubt, I'll be back the 21st, I think. Something like that.
By the way, Tyler Matthew Harris.
Between the 19th and the 21st.
Tyler doesn't believe that those keyshot renders are renders. He thinks they're real. So,
right? That's my point.
I know.
And I'm an idiot renderer. I mean, I am like this. I have spent the last 12 years of my life ranting about rendering. So I'm telling you, I don't. People who know me understand how impressive those are, because I hate it. I hate rendering. But no, I'll tell you what. I mean, and I'm not just like one of those blind yah-yah guys. I mean, I dislike rendering. I think it's a crappy selling tool. People never get what they want. But for this stuff, I mean, holy hell. I mean, it's so fast. It's awesome. Because I didn't want to learn to render. Those are the renders I put out, not wanting to learn. I think that's fairly impressive. Shinya pats me on my back regularly, and he's one of those knurling out render geeks. So, yeah, no.
All right, guys, have a fantastic week. Tomas, I will talk to you later, my friend. All right, everybody, head over to URC.
All right, my brother, we'll talk soon.
Yep.
Have a great one, guys.
You too.
Sorry about the crap connection.
No, it's all good. It's actually worked out quite well. All right, head over to urc.com. You can learn more about the course there. Email me if you guys want to know, and I'll talk to you all later. And then if you are up for it, there's another webinar with Ed Steckley, 4:30, which is in about half an hour. I am a busy individual today. So it'll be at this exact same page. Thanks, Caleb. Thanks, Tomas. All right, my friend. See you later.